Welcome everybody to Emerge Online. Happy to have you guys back with us for whatever week this is. I've lost track again.
6.
Do you guys know? 6? Nice. That's good. So 6 weeks, and we're just finishing up James chapter 2. Carla, do you want to tell us what we're reading today?
We are reading the last section in chapter 2, which is verses 14 to 26, and it's titled Faith Without Good Deeds is Dead.
Nice. So if you haven't read it yet, I want to recommend you just pause the video right here and then go check that out because it's great stuff. It'll help put everything we're talking about next into context. So pause and back. Mm-hmm. So I guess one of the first questions to really deal with as we're looking at this whole section, guys, is what is faith? What does faith mean to you guys? So Matt, Carla, take it away.
Okay. So I have faith is the personal aspect is what I've gathered anyway from reading this. The personal aspect of our walk with God, kind of like our own soul being saved. But the gospel teaches us that the purpose of it is not only to guarantee our own salvation, but God's heart is more that everyone would be saved. We know everyone's not going to be, but that's his heart that we would. There's a scripture that says that. I'm not sure where it is. And yeah, so when I hear the word faith, I've always kind of connected it more with the words hope and trust. Like in Hebrews 11, it kind of defines faith. Faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things we cannot see. In James, though, it kind of has a different aspect of it, not just like hope and trust, but actually like the belief in God. Verse 19 says, "You say you have faith, for you believe in one God." So saying here, more faith is the connection between God and us as individual people. So more of a personal, that's why I say it's the personal aspect. It's in our hearts and minds who we believe and know God is and why we believe in him. So God meets us as individuals, and that's how most of us get saved. But God, it doesn't just stop there. God's love is so vast that he didn't design it to just stop there. And that is how it kind of leads into the rest of the chapter. And like we're going to talk about it, so connected with good deeds. And even to the point that they're so closely knit that it says 3 times in this section, it says in verse 17, 20, and 26, that basically they're dead without each other.
Absolutely. I like that. Matt, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So first I had just looked up the definition of faith, just like the actual dictionary definition. It says complete trust or confidence in someone or something. So in other words, it's giving up control, which is for most people is a very unnatural thing to do. But I think that when you accept Jesus into your heart, that is a surrender of every aspect of your life. I think for faith to grow, it has to be tested. And I gave the example of if you were playing that trust fall game, you're not going to feel at ease the first time you do it, right? It's not going to be like, oh, we're going for this. There's no thoughts in my head that I'm going to hit the ground or anything like that, or the person's going to pull their arms out or whatever, right? Like it's there's always little alarm bells in your head going off. And so I think for faith to grow, it has to be tested, and to a very like somebody that's very tentative or practical, jumping headfirst into anything is sounds kind of crazy, right? Without weighing your options. But I think that as humans we can't have a complete trust or confidence in anything. I think that's reserved for heaven, but it's the practice of trust or confidence in God without knowing like what's to come or without knowing the future. I think that's what produces strong faith.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that idea of, faith that's trusted, or like that trust fall exercise you gave, Carly, you were mentioning when we have faith, it's assurance of what we hope for. I don't know if you guys have ever watched those trust fall exercises where like all right, fall, and then the person instead of falling back, they go forwards and just bite it. I think sometimes that's what we feel like is going to happen. Like we don't totally know, but the beauty of faith is it's an assurance of what we hope for. It's more than just like blind faith. It's a guarantee of what we're hoping for.
And even like in practicing it, like in that example, like it gets easier the more time you do it, but sometimes there's always going to be that, okay, like there is the possibility of it, of not being caught, but if,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love rock climbing. And I know anytime I fall, if I've set up my gear right, it's going to hold me, you know. There's just this level of trust. And then when I'm climbing, I have somebody who's belaying me on the ground. I don't put that role in somebody that I don't trust, you know. And I think it's similar with us and God. You know, we can fully trust that He is going to take care of us when we go into stuff. It's good. Yeah. When I think of this idea of faith, what really stands out to me is it's more than just this idea of mental assent. More than like again, back to like the rope example. I know the weight that my rope is supposed to be able to hold. That's mentally knowing that it can hold me. But there's a very big difference between mentally knowing it can hold me and then trusting that it will hold me. I take teenagers out rock climbing every now and then, and there's this level I can see them holding onto the rock. I'm like, just let go, just trust the rope. And they're just like shaking because they don't want to let go, because they don't fully trust that the rope is actually going to be able to hold them. Yeah. I think faith impacts our life. It's not just mental assent of knowing that it's going to hold us, but it's this idea of that we lean into, we fully trust in it. It impacts the way we live. And I think that's going to lean a lot into this idea of works and how they tie into faith. But Carla, you were mentioning earlier that you had a verse that stood out to you in this section.
Yeah, just in verse 19, it says, "For you say you have faith, for you believe that there is one God. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror." So I always just like it when things like that are mentioned in the Bible, that demons even know, like they know how real and how powerful God is, yet they still disobey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that stood out to me as I was reading the section is that, you know, faith that there's a God is awesome, but when it's void of actions, it's the same faith as demons. You know, it's kind of an interesting way of putting in our thoughts. But with that said, what do you guys think the author means when he talks about this whole concept of good works? Because I think every person is going to have some layer of like, oh, this is what it means to do good works, or to do good works for God, or whatever it means. But what's your guys' take on this whole idea of good works?
So I kind of talked about how faith was the personal aspect, and so I kind of feel like works is the practical aspect. So God uses our works to meet people, and probably use someone else's works to meet us. And also he uses it to grow our own faith. So verse 15 and 16 talk about feeding and clothing someone in need. So that's the type of example, like a very practical example of doing something, doing a good deed. And that's how God uses us and our works to meet other people. So it's like, yeah, I guess we have our faith, and it's, like I said before, it's not meant to end at us. And even in Matthew 28, God gives the Great Commission. And that in itself says, go out and make disciples. So that's what we do with our faith once we believe, is go spread it around and share it with others. And then the verses about Abraham and Rahab talk about their obedience to God in the form of action. Verse 22 says, "You see, his faith and actions worked together. His actions made his faith complete." When we act in obedience to something God is asking, it's solidifying our faith. So here, works are not only being used to meet other people, but they're for ourselves, and strengthening our assurance in God that he does exist and that he is capable. And then the last verse, or almost last verse, 24, says, "So you see, we are shown to be right with God by what we do, not by faith alone."
That's good. Matt, what are your take on this?
Yeah. So I think he's, at least part of it anyway, James is talking about the time and energy that we put into furthering God's kingdom. I think after you've accepted, Jesus as your Lord and Savior, I don't think it should just end there. Right? It shouldn't. Yeah. I've said these words, accepted him, and it's a free ride from now on, kind of thing. I think works are a natural extension of our love and appreciation from being set free. And Carla and I have actually been reading through Timothy as well. And I liked one of the subnotes in chapter 4, just the way they worded it. But it says, so it kind of goes along with what we're talking about, but it says, good teaching unifies word and deed, belief and behavior. So yeah, I think on top of works being a natural extension of our love for God and our faith in God, I think we also need godly people to surround us, and in that wisdom that they bring, to make sense of it, right, and for them to go hand in hand.
It's good. I love. I keep going through this and keep saying, quotes from the Message, but I love how they put it. But I got to get the right translation on my phone now because I keep jumping back and forth. Also, I love, I don't know if you guys use the YouVersion Bible app. Can't see it really, but it's my favorite. So many different versions, it makes checking through stuff super easy. But he says, the moment that you separate body and spirit, you end up with a corpse. Separate faith and works and you get the same thing. I love that the language, it's not not pulling any punches. And I think this whole section doesn't really beat around the bush in any way, shape, or form. It's just all right, here it is. Faith, works, they have to be together. You don't separate these two. It's there's certain times where I'm reading the Bible and I sit back and I'm like, what in the world were they talking about? And then there's other times where it's just okay, that's clear as anything. And this is one of those sections, I love it so much. But when I come across the idea of works, there's just so many different things that flow through my mind. But as I was going through this, Matthew 20 verse 28 kind of got brought to my attention. It's this: whoever wants to be great must become a servant, and whoever wants to be first must be a slave. And I think something that we don't always process, but if you're a Christian or if you've been a Christian for a while, we're supposed to love people, we're supposed to honor people above ourselves. But there's this idea that we don't just say it, we don't just comment up, but we genuinely put ourselves in that place of being a servant or even a slave, where we put that much emphasis on those that are around us, that we're trying to love on, to serve, to invest in. And this whole idea of works is coming from a place, I think, of having other people and honoring other people more than we seek our own good. There's a big concept in today's world where, take care of yourself first, and then out of whatever's left over, then you can help other people.
Yeah.
I think if we were to flip that around, if we all intentionally sought the betterment of other people, if we all loved on each other and put each other above ourselves, I think people get taken care of that way. When we all seek to take care of ourselves, I don't think it really works out well, because one, we're bad at taking care of ourselves. I mean, even this quarantine time has given me a recognition of oh, I'm really bad at feeding myself healthy food. Me and my wife, we keep on talking about hey, we need to get good food in our diet. And I'm like, yeah, awesome. She gets salad stuff already from me, sweet, corn dog as it is. And it's last night we were sitting on the couch just chilling, and I'm like, I don't need any food right now. We just had a big supper, but chips would be a good idea. Ooh, and Oreos. And then a different flavor of chips. This is all good, yeah, that was a big tangent, but this idea of we're not really great at taking care of ourselves. We know what we should do sometimes, but we don't always do the best for ourselves. We're really good at taking care of immediate in this moment needs, but really poor oftentimes at looking at our long-term needs and goals.
Yeah.
And I think when we can invest in each other and take care of each other and lift each other up and build each other up, it changes the world around us.
Totally.
And I think that's a big piece. Like Jesus demonstrated this in his life, this whole idea of he didn't just show up, tell us stuff, and then say, all right, now serve me. But he went and he gave his own life and gave everything of himself so that we could have some kind of a connection to him.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful piece. So with that said, do you guys have any other closing thoughts, ideas, or comments?
I think so, no.
That's about it.
Nice. Well, we don't want to make this too long, so I think we'll end it there. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks, Matt and Carla, for everything you guys have been doing for this. And I guess next week we're hopping into James 3. We're almost halfway through this thing. It's good.
All right.
Awesome. Well, have a good one, guys.
Right.